Hello and welcome to the Genre Fiction Podcast. I am Jack Roney.
And I'm Harry Colfer.
Oh, good. You got the cue. Nice.
I
Well done.
did,
We've been
yeah.
practicing that.
And I'm Anne Freeman. Like, can we all
We'll
get in on
you.
this?
We'll get to you. Don't worry.
We've got a bit of a pushy guest on our hands, Harry. Welcome, Anne Freeman. We're very excited to have you on the show. How are you today, Anne?
Thank you. I'm wonderful. All the better for seeing you two.
And I didn't mean you're a pushy guest. You're not a pushy guest at all.
It's all right. You said what you said. We all heard it.
I heard it as well. Yeah.
Love for it when our guests take control. It's
Yeah,
how we roll.
You lose the plot, don't you? When you're knocked out of your sort of comfort zone of your script, it's sort of like going to screw with you.
It has.
And on that note, would you like to tell them the subject matter today?
Oh,
exactly. Good.
Not yet. We'll do a reveal very shortly. But how about we'll start with doing a bit of an intro and bio to Anne. So we're very fortunate to have Anne Freeman with us for this episode. So Anne is a copy, feature, and health writer and an award-winning author of contemporary fiction. Her debut novel, Returning to Adelaide, was a finalist in Australia's most prestigious romance writers competition, the Valerie Parv Award. Her second release, Me That You See, was shortlisted in the Hawkeye Prize and longlisted in the Grindstone Literary International Novel Prize, and is due for a release in March 2024. Anne delivers workshops about what makes successful spicy scenes, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and how to craft one. So in this episode, we're going to chat to Anne about how to avoid writing cringy sex scenes. So Anne, you've got a job ahead of you. You need to teach Harry and I, two blokes who are used to writing crime stories, and we're quite comfortable in writing that sort of stuff. But I tell you what, we're a bit squeamish. We can talk about blood and guts and crime scenes, but we're a bit squeamish when it comes to writing sex scenes. So
absolutely, and I think that's common of a lot of writers. This particular type of scene really tests the mettle.
Okay. Yeah, so you've got some strategies that you can share with us. Again, I guess this is a bit of a prelude to some workshops that you deliver in terms of writing spicy scenes, and I guess it's about writing spicy scenes with a bit of class.
It is for me. I think it depends on what you're going for. I realized early on that I was writing the spicy scenes I wanted to read. Now, you boys, being the Genre Fiction Podcast, might be familiar with a wonderful subgenre of romance, colloquially known as smut. Now, smut is a whole other level, and gosh, how we love it. But they're not afraid to go there. Like the word choices, it's very real, it's very in your face, no holds barred. And what I realize is that I write spicy scenes for people who don't read smut. So typically what is available in the romance genre particularly is closed door romance, which, as the name implies, the protagonist finally gets together with the love interest. They enjoy a life-altering kiss, and the music sort of, starts up and the camera pans away, and then we rejoin them when they're making espressos in the morning. Which I say, no. I want to know what happened. I feel that this is very important information that's held back from the reader. And so I write spicy scenes in which the door is flung open, but they're sort of written with class, let's say. So nothing that's going to make you sort of feel embarrassed or as if you know too much. And so that's my particular brand of spicy scene, and that's what I teach.
But is that more related to the genre that you write in? Because what would you call your writing genre?
Well, I sort of refer to it as women's contemporary fiction with elements of romance. I don't know that I fit in the typical romance category, because there's some very, as you would know, very sort of strict guidelines. There's tropes. There's all sorts of technical vehicles, let's say, at play. And I don't typically stay within those. So, you know, readers or other people might say that, you know, I write romance, but in my heart of hearts, I feel that I write women's contemporary fiction. And there are romantic elements, but equally, you know, all of my books and even my short stories, they often feature women supporting women, these amazing friendships between women. But there's no category in the bookstore that's women supporting women. There's only romance. Yeah. And because I also have those elements in my storytelling, that's where I'm filed away.
Yeah, it's something I sort of read in, I sort of bumped into that issue with writing about paramedics, is that there's nothing about a paramedic genre. No. And, you know, you try and fit it into crime, but that sometimes there's no crime involved. It's just what the paramedics are doing. And so
that's right. See, we're trailblazers is what's happening here. And I think like that history will look back on us fondly when that area of the book show. I hope that we're next to one another, to be honest. Women supporting women and paramedics, just right there, sort of in the back corner.
Well, we're supporting most people, really, and now we're not sort of genre specific.
Right. Yes, exactly right. We will not be shackled.
Hey, Anne, I'm interested in you used the word smut, and I like
it's a good one, isn't it?
It's a great word.
It's a ripper, but I guess it's that whole issue of crossing over genres. And, we've spoken to a previous guest about the difference between love stories and romance. And now there was a technical difference between love stories and romance. Can you remember, Harry?
Yeah. Romance has to have a happy ending.
Of course.
Oh, it's a happily ever after, or a happy for now.
For now, yes. But it has to be a happy ending at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas often a romance, like Romeo and Juliet, might have a tragic end. So
that'll be a love story. That's not a romance.
Bill, no, he wasn't afraid to go there.
So that was a real learning for me. But then, you know, we got this other genre. You called it smut. I love that word. I'm going to keep using that word. But then erotica is another kind of crossover. So how do you, I know Harry asked you where do you kind of fit, Anne, in terms of what you write, but in terms of what readers expect to see across these different genres, is there a real crossover between, you know, we're talking about writing love, romance, erotica? Is there different shades of grey between? Maybe 50 shades of grey.
I like it.
Boom, boom.
You just walked into that one.
I did. Yeah.
I mean, look, I think, you know, there's obviously common threads. You know, erotica is probably what is, you know, affectionately known as smut. I suppose, you know, we could look to the reasons that readers pick up these books. So if you're reading erotica or smut, you are here for the sex scenes, and the plot is the thing that loosely ties them all together. Whereas the types of books that I write are sort of story-led, and the spicy scenes are just sort of a little flourish on top, a bit of a you're welcome to my reader. The funny thing about it, though, is that I didn't sort of set out to be this authority on spicy scenes. You know, like most of us, with my debut novel, Returning to Adelaide, I just set out to write the story that I wanted to read. And that was all fine. And then reviews started coming in, and there was one particular element that came up again and again in every review, and it was the spicy scene. And the reason that I run a Stories with Spice workshop now is not because I decided to market myself as this authority. It sort of happened by accident. So my publisher, Hawkeye Publisher, your publisher as well, Jack, they sent out some emails to different like library groups and things like that. And they listed their authors and the authors' talking points. And one of the dot points that was put under my name was crafting the perfect sex scene. Unbeknownst to me. And then I received an email from my publisher saying, we have a library in Melbourne, and they would like you to run an hour-long workshop on how to write the perfect sex scene. And I said, What?
Oh, yeah.
And so at that point, I had to make a decision whether I would politely decline or just jump right in, boots and all. And, you know, me being the person I am, I just figured, well, let's do it. And I had to reverse engineer what it is that I had done, because I hadn't done it with any kind of strict guidelines. I simply wrote the sex scene I wanted to read. It was very intuitive. I have a sales and marketing and a copywriting background, so I think that a lot of that came into play, which we'll probably discuss later, but having an understanding of who it is that's reading this particular scene. And I went from there, and the response from participants has been really encouraging. It's, you know, it's a fun workshop. It's by no means, you know, serious. I think if we can't laugh about this, then you need to, you know, have a paramedic check your pulse. But that's how I ended up here.
So you kind of alluded, sorry, Harry, you kind of alluded to, Anne, that you're getting, you kind of fell into this by accident, and you're getting feedback from readers. What specifically, what sort of, and you said it was the feedback around the spicy scenes in your stories. What sort of feedback were you given that you thought, oh, hang on, maybe I'm onto something here?
Yeah, that's right. I think it was particularly readers that don't seek erotica or smut were just really delighted by this particular scene and the way that it didn't make them cringe. And in fact, it was a very pleasurable experience. I had sort of direct messages saying, you know, I lit a candle and I poured myself a glass of wine, and I was like, yes, girl, you do that. And, you know, it was just delightful. I was just so pleased with the reaction, you know, over something that I just, you know, put together because it's what I wanted to read, and it wasn't really something I could readily find.
Did you find that when you came to disassemble how you'd written it, you had that moment of sort of confusion or anything like that? I'm just throwing my mind back to when somebody asked me I was swimming a lot. How do you do a tumble turn? And I'd been doing them for ages, and I went, oh, you just do it like this. And then I couldn't do a tumble turn for like about a couple of days because I just had thought too much about it. Did you have any sort of like problem with that thinking process?
Harry,
and turning it into
are you asking me about performance anxiety?
No.
Because no.
Yes, but we're talking about writing the perfect sex scene. You know how it is.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Well, research is key. Yes, indeed. No, it was very interesting though. I kind of started with this, you know, well, I have no idea what I've done, and then it sort of turned into a brainstorm, and then, you know, grouping different elements under subsections, and, you know, my undiagnosed OCD obviously came to the fore when I was putting that together. I mean, look, I think it's just shy of clinical. It's sort of just that very practical association. But no, I didn't have that. But now I think I understand it more. And I think that sort of helped. I've sort of, you know, through teaching other people, improved, you know, my own work, I hope.
And there's something you said before, which we'll start to delve into in more detail, but how you kind of made the comparison where some stories where the sex scene or the spicy scene is inserted into the story to develop, you know, the relationship between the characters. And sometimes it's just okay, they allude to it, you know, there's the kiss, and then it kind of blurs out. Next minute, as you say, they're having a latte or having a cigarette.
Oh,
they've kind of skipped over
cheated. Yeah, I feel really cheated.
But it does question, you know, if it's a crime novel, and is that just distracting from the actual plot and from the storyline, that if you're just going to have this, if the sex scene has got no sort of connection to the rest of the story, then you are just levering in a scene to make it smutty, to give that sort of extra edge to your writing. Is that potential?
Exactly. And that is why very early on in my workshop, I say, don't plonk a bonk.
Good phrase.
Don't plonk a bonk. So, you know, you can't just put it in there and hope that it's, you know, a sort of extra, you know, added bonus, spicy flourish. It's really not how it works. The reader doesn't want that. They're not going to feel invested. It's just going to be sort of an oddity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. That was going to be my next point about this issue around don't plonk or bonk. And I love that terminology. Only Anne Freeman could come up with it. That's brilliant. But
I mentioned it's not a serious workshop, right? I've mentioned that before.
So you're essentially saying, you know, don't chuck it in just for the sake of it. And I guess I suppose it's about knowing your readers. You know, if a reader's reading one of your books, they're expecting it because it's all part of the journey of your story. Whereas if I'm writing a Patricia Cornwell novel and it's, you know, it's a forensically driven police procedural, and next minute there's a whole chapter of some sex, and I'm thinking, yeah, look, all I want to know is that these two get it on. But how does this progress the story? I don't really need to know the full chapter. You know, I can jump on and watch something else on Netflix or SBS if I want that.
Oh, we're going SBS now. So
SBS,
it's put you in the mood then.
We're going hardcore. We're going SBS. So I guess, yeah, it's about reader expectations. You know, for me, I might think if I'm reading a crime forensic police procedural, I don't really need the sex scene. Yeah, okay, but having said that, I'm happy to be corrected because I've always, as I said, I've always felt uncomfortable even thinking about writing, and I've steered completely away from it. I'm more than happy to write a murder scene and talk about an autopsy. But dare I try and attempt writing a sex? I've never attempted it. It's been outside my comfort zone.
This could be so interesting because I imagine that, you know, when you have protagonists that kind of have to have this very professional, steely exterior. They've got a reputation to uphold. There's a lot riding on, you know, their ability to do their job.
You obviously haven't read my character. Anyway, carry on.
Wouldn't it be interesting, you know, if you did have a spicy scene in there with the purpose for revealing something about your protagonist that they perhaps try for the whole, you know, rest of the novel to conceal. You know, I think that, you know, it's such a powerful vehicle for revealing character truths because you're totally stripped bare, like literally, figuratively. There's nothing to hide behind. And, you know, there's a number of different angles that you can use, things that you can reveal about your characters and the love interests. I mean, one of them is villainy. You know, you could have, let's say, a love interest that seems wonderful, but in that moment, there's just something that tips the reader off that that person is not who they say they are, even.
Edit it out.
I'm cool with it. But, you know, there's this immense opportunity in those moments of intimacy just for everything else to go quiet and for the truth to be revealed to the reader. So
yeah,
never say never, Jack.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm setting myself a challenge because of this, because I'm starting to become more enlightened and, you know, want to become a broader writer. I need to start learning these skills. And I guess this is a good segue into what we're going to start talking about in terms of providing writers like us, numpties like Harry and I, that, you know, I know I can only speak for myself. I've steered away from it because of probably my own insecurities around writing sex scenes and just not knowing how to, or fear of it coming across as being tacky and cringy. And so I know it could add a lot more depth to my stories and reveal a lot more about the characters. So I'm not against it. I'm more than happy to have a crack at doing it. I guess it's about having the confidence and having some skills to approach it in a way that's tasteful.
If it makes you feel better, I've written 0 autopsies. So, you know, we've all got our thing. Like, it's nothing to feel ashamed about. Yeah.
All right. Well, how about we'll compromise. The next crime book I write, I will insert a spicy scene. And can you please insert an autopsy scene in your next?
What? That's the type of bet I would really like to take.
All right. You've heard it here first, folks.